If you order everything online and you're not walking and shopping down your avenue, your Main Street, Broadway, it will have the effect of, well, then some of those businesses aren't going to make it and you're going to have more vacancies. And then that block, when there's a vacant store, at least in the city, you're going to have, unfortunately, some problems. So every vacant store can bring sometimes crime, safety issues, and that affects the neighborhood feeling.
The Small Business Rundown is the official podcast of the National Federation of Independent Business, the member-driven voice of small business. NFIB and our members advocate to keep America's small businesses strong and independent in Washington, D.C., all 50 states, and the nation's courts.
Welcome to the Small Business Rundown, a biweekly podcast with information on independent businesses' victories and challenges in Washington, D.C. and state capitals. I'm Adam Temple, NFIB Senior Vice President of Advocacy. National Small Business Week is coming up on April 28th through May 4th, so we want to put the focus on shopping small, what that means and why it's important to your local community. Joining me today is Kim Duncan, owner of Goldenlight Visions in Manhattan, New York, Amy Morgan, owner of LeFleur in Washington, Illinois, and Jim Brown, NFIB State Director in Tennessee. Kim, Amy, and Jim, thanks for coming on. So, Jim, I'll start with you. You have written extensively on the importance of shopping small, and it's something you discuss with NFIB members on a regular basis and what the impact is for supporting the local community. Based on our membership, how would you define a small business?
Yeah, thank you, Adam. Let's start with the statistics first. Let's go with the SBA statistics, and that's the U.S. Small Business Administration. And according to the SBA, they say 99% of all businesses in Tennessee are defined as small. And they also say that just under half of Tennessee's workforce works for a small business. And as far as the landscape at NFIB, we've got 7,000 members in Tennessee, and they employ an average of 6 to 10 employees. We've got quite a few members that have 10 employees to 100. And then we've got some larger members, 500 employees or more. Southern Champion Trade, McKee Foods, which is Little Debbie Snack Cakes, they have 4,000 employees. They have a small business mentality because they're independent and they're not publicly traded. And that's just our universe in NFIB. But Adam, what I've learned over the years is small business, it means different things to different people. But for us at NFIB, it's an independent mindedness. It's often family run. You know, NFIB is the National Federation of Independent Business.
Thanks, Jim. Why is it important to shop small, and how do small businesses impact their local communities?
You mentioned the opinion editorials, the op-eds. The most recent one that I wrote, it started with, quote, "The last few years, small business has not, to put it mildly, had it easy. And what's certain these days is uncertainty." And many NFIB members have told us we haven't fully recovered from the pandemic, or our growth and hiring plans are on hold. I heard that from a gym owner in Nashville yesterday. They've just put things on hold. And our margins are thinner than ever because of inflation and higher labor costs. It's just a lot of pressure that they have been under. Here's what we know. When we shop small and support local businesses, we are helping family businesses that create so many jobs. They support our schools and civic organizations, and they really hold our communities together. And maybe the best analogy I have is go to the Little League ballpark and you look at the outfield wall and you see the signs, the small businesses that are supporting that Little League. It's a real estate agent. It's a restaurant. It's your pub on the corner. They're the ones that are investing in that community, and it's not big out-of-state corporations. And Adam, I've got a couple more numbers here I'll share that I think are important. Number one, it is estimated that 67 cents of every dollar spent at a small business stays in the community. Number two, every dollar spent at a small business, it creates an additional 50 cents in local business activity as those employers and their employees, they shop local. And that is why shopping small is so critical.
So let's talk a little bit about the profile of a small business. We often associate small businesses with Main Street, USA, maybe in a small town. Kim, you own a small business in Manhattan, anything but a small town. How would you, from your perspective, define small business and what it means to shop small?
Yeah, for me, a small business is truly, 10 people or smaller. When they say a small business is technically 500 people or smaller, that to me is not a small business.
Right.
And the impact of a small business in Manhattan, it keeps the neighborhood feeling like a true small neighborhood. We give personalized service. We get to know our customers we know their lives. We see them sometimes weekly, at least monthly, and we know their lives, of their families, what's going on in their life, and they care about us too. So it's the personal relationship, the personal connection that I find so important, especially in a big city, where you have your smaller separation of neighborhoods, but when you have several small businesses on that main street, that main Broadway, huge Broadway, it makes an impact to feel like a home and more of a community. That's how I feel about a small business.
Yeah. And Amy, your business is in a suburb in Illinois. So from your perspective, how would you define that?
I think very similar actually to Kim. It's very interesting to know, even in a larger city, how you can create that feeling, because I'm so fortunate that we live in a smaller town of, 20,000 people. And so, from there, then it's primarily small businesses when you drive up and down the street. And so the way that I would define it is a lot of brick and mortars that are family owned. So many of the companies and the small businesses that are in Washington really are just generational. And so they're being passed down from one family member to the other. They're named by their last name. And I think that, just to reiterate the fact, it's the personal touch and the relationships. When I first bought my business, a local business owner that owns the grocery shop down the street, he said, people are going to support your business because of you, not because of your business. And over again, day after day, that's proven to be the case. And so I think that, as employees in a small business, not even just the owner, we constantly are pouring back into our community, back into our customers, because I think that it just proves that, over and over again, it comes back tenfold.
Could each of you just tell us a little bit about your business and how you came to own a small business?
I bought my business when it was 2 years old, so on its second birthday. And so it actually back then was just a little local flower shop that a couple had opened. It was on a historic downtown Washington Square. I was on this path of entrepreneurship that I felt like I needed to be my own business owner. And I was actually trying to pursue a different business that I was trying to open. And so I was a customer of the flower shop. And so the owner at the time just said, why do you want to do this when you can just buy my flower shop? And I had a background. I grew up on a farm and had a background in flower arranging and had done weddings since I've been 12 years old. So it was natural. And so I went and I worked a day in the flower shop, and I walked in and I told my husband, we're buying a flower shop. And we just celebrated our 10th anniversary on the first of the month, which, comes with a lot of feelings, of all of the goods and the bads and everything with it. But we're an everyday flower shop. But then also, because of the nature of the world that we have today, we've had to expand our business in a lot of different ways. And so in order to create positive cash flow, we really focus on weddings and events and funerals. And so that really has helped us survive some of the ups and the downs. It's really interesting because for so many years I focused on that, on creating that, the getting rid of the peaks and the valleys. But then through COVID, it's the flower shop that got us through. So it really has proven that all different fingers and areas of my business are equally important. It's the good and the bad of dealing with a small business.
Yeah. Kim, what's your story?
So yeah, my husband and I, we do own the store together. We always wanted to, have a business of our own, and it's more his background. We do professional photo, fine art printing and framing, custom framing and digitizing services, and it's more his world, but I had always wanted to be involved with our own business. So he worked in the industry, I came on board, and we worked together to make sure we could survive living and breathing together 24/7 a day, which we can, thank God. And we actually, speaking of the importance of small business, we built out our location. We started on our own and took out some, SBA loans, and we started building out a year before we opened. It took a long time to get everything in place. And 2 months after we opened, COVID hit. It was devastating, to say the least. In Manhattan, we were locked down for 3 full months. We had to be closed. Thankfully, we had gotten to know customers the first 2 months we were open, and the loyalty and the relationship just emailing and people finding some work for us to help keep us alive. Working with my landlord, thankfully, we work things. But the point is, I truly believe the people in our neighborhood were caring and concerned. And when we reopened, it was a slow reopening because the whole city was gone for the entire summer. Nobody was here. And, just the fact that people were thinking of us. And we've heard, if someone didn't see us for like a year before, COVID hit, and then they came a year later, they're like, wow, I'm so glad you're still here. I've been worried about you guys. So it's so important to us that, we care about our customers, but they care about us too. And so we've been surviving. We're in our fourth year. And, I know we might touch on this, but, we grow slowly because we can only grow slowly. It takes a long time to make sure you have what you need to grow, at least for, as I mentioned, a very small business. You have to do it carefully, but slowly but surely we're growing.
That's great. And it dovetails nicely into my next question, Amy. From a consumer's perspective, why is it important for a customer to shop small when they have options online or at big box stores?
Well, I think there's a couple different points that are really important when it comes to shopping small is the fact that we are a very close-knit community. And so really, it's not only the support of local community members that you're sitting next to at the ballpark and that are supporting your kids and their activities. Beyond that, it's the ability to walk into a storefront and a brick and mortar and immediately get the product that you want. And so I think we're quickly learning that even Amazon's promises are getting harder. You can't guarantee that you're getting your shipments. But when you walk into a small business, you're able to look and touch and feel the product that you're getting. And so I think that there's a lot to be said with that, especially with large businesses taking some of their production overseas. And so I think that when you're working with a small business, you're also dealing with the buyer. And so I think as a small business owner, you're not going to bring in a product that you are not proud to represent yourself. That is very, very important. And I think that the other component of it is you're dealing with the decision maker. And so you're not dealing with some corporate person that is making the decisions. When you walk into a small business, primarily you're working with the owner. You're getting that decision right off the bat. If a customer is struggling with the situation, you're able to immediately talk with the owner and get it resolved. But then also, I think it gives the ability of that small business and the small business owner to salvage that relationship afterwards too. Instead of just going online and saying, oh, they didn't help anything. For me, it's important in my reputation that I stand behind my products. And so therefore, I'm not going to let somebody walk out of my door unhappy. And so it kind of the buck stops here when it comes to small businesses versus having to go up the chain to get answers.
Kim, you touched on this a little bit earlier, especially as it related to COVID. But aside from that, what are some of the struggles that you see as a small business owner in a city?
Yeah, I mean, right now, at least for New York City, we're definitely going through some challenges. A struggle is to make sure that everyone feels safe, safety, crime. I'm very involved with the community where I want to make sure my location, my several blocks are safe, feel safe. People want to walk by and shop. I've gotten involved with the community where I go to community precinct meetings monthly to make sure I'm aware of what's happening in our local precinct. And I also give, some insight to what some of the troubles can be. However, and thankfully, they've been amazing and wanting to help small businesses. So shout out to our local precinct where I am. They work and walk around and check on things. So that's just, at least one aspect that affects us in a city that is out of my control, but I try to do everything I can. Thankfully, we've seen improvements. So that's, one thing that's a struggle, but also finding the time to do those things. Myself and my husband, my partner, we're the owners. So if I go to a community precinct meeting or I'm trying to do work on that, he's covering the store, maybe with one other person at the time, but, finding the time to get our financials done, taxes done, payrolls done, making sure everything's going well for people that are working here. We do everything. I'm doing the buying. I set up the windows. My partner's doing a lot of the production with, one or two other people. So we do everything. And it's a struggle to make sure you have enough time for each component, but they're all very important. And, I even literally mop the floors and clean the bathroom because I want to be, when people are here working, they are enjoying it. They have a good feeling. They're working on the most important things, which is whether helping our customers and giving them the best service possible or doing the work, helping my partner get production done. So we do everything. And that can sometimes be a challenge, but it's a happy challenge because when you own your own small business, your heart and soul is in it. So you're smiling, even cleaning the bathroom because you just want it to be the best it can be for everyone, ourselves and also for our customers.
Amy, are the struggles all the same for you, or do you have differences in a more suburban setting?
Absolutely. Everything that Kim said is so true. I mean, especially working in a small unit, I always say that, I'm not going to ask my employees to do anything that I'm not going to do myself. And so I think it's twofold in the fact of one, I want that first impression to be great and I want my customer's experience to be great, but also I want to be a good leader in my very close, small knit employee group as well. I don't know if it's a difference, but kind of just to take it in a different direction as an obstacle is the fact that I do live in a very small community where everybody knows everything. And so I think that that's very good and positive in the fact that they want to show support, but also it can be kind of a negative in some components as well. We know through businesses, there is those peaks and valleys. And so it's hard to always put on a front that everything is great. It's very difficult to find that balance of making sure that the public perception is that everything is good, but also being realistic when things aren't good. Because I think that there is this common perception of small business owners being rich, and it's quite the opposite. We work for everything that we have. I mean, we don't have the insurance that corporations have. We have to go out and it's very expensive to buy insurance for yourself when you're self-employed. Everything is more important. And so I think that when you look at it at the end of the day, legally, we're obligated to pay our employees, pay our bills and everything like that. And the last person that gets to take home a paycheck is you. And so I think that the public perception that we try to make sure that everything is good and everything is rosy and come support us, but on the backside of it, it's sometimes a struggle and it's sometimes hard to find the balance to let people know when they really need to help you.
Tagging on to Amy, speaking of, struggles, obviously, especially in New York and city and state, we have tax increases and talks of tax increases all the time. Mm-hmm. And minimum wage increases, talks of that all the time. And, I know Amy will attest, we want our people that work here to be happy and we always want to go above and beyond. But the tax situation, if it goes up, if minimum wage keeps going up, because that makes every layer of salaries go up and go up. And a small business, especially if you're really small, you cannot handle those kind of increases. It affects everything. So juggling that, literally praying, please let them make sure that they understand we can't afford that. So you could kind of put government or, administrations, political administrations, they sometimes, it seems, to many business owners I speak to, along with myself, don't understand fully what it does to a business and a very small business. And to mandate something that we have to pay for is incredulous when, many are still surviving after COVID. We are all still paying off loans that we had to get during COVID. So our finances are still, I don't want to call it perilous, but our finances are constrained and have limitations. And when the government decides just to mandate something, they can't imagine what they're doing to the really very small businesses and the impact. It leads to vacant stores. In New York City, we have a huge problem of vacant stores. In Manhattan, in my neighborhood, I have a 10-block radius that has 20 vacant stores. That is insane. And a lot of it has to do with COVID took its effect, and it took a few years for it to take its effect also, because like I said, the city has changed, the world has changed. People walking by, the amount of people passing by has changed. Going into the online world, that's where small businesses count more than anything. Is if you order everything online and you're not walking and shopping down your avenue, your main street, Broadway, it will have the effect of, well, then some of those businesses aren't going to make it and you're going to have more vacancies. And then that block, when there's a vacant store, at least in the city, you're going to have, unfortunately, some problems. So every vacant store can bring sometimes crime, safety issues, and that affects the neighborhood feeling, because then you've got little pockets of things that you're worried about. You can't walk by, and it causes even more destruction. It's like a circle, because then people don't want to walk by. So it's a self-fulfilling, prophecy, or whatever you want to call it. So important that I wish government would understand the smaller businesses more, but there are, thankfully, customers that say to us, I want to support local, and we may not have the cheapest price because we can't afford to, because we're paying astronomical rents. And as Amy said, we are the ones that will care that you love our product, that you are getting what you need. I'll try and find you what you need. You'll see it and feel it, and we'll take care of it, and you'll know what it is. So shopping with us, there's definitely reasons that are better than just picking something off a screen, online. But the benefits of supporting a small business for the reason of a whole community feeling and safety, and having cute shops to walk by, and not just big retailers that are literally in every single neighborhood. I see some of the exact same stores.
For those in other states, whether it's Tennessee or Illinois or others, is those following policies and laws know that what starts in New York or California is often pushed elsewhere not long after. So it's important that all of our members are aware of that, and that NFIB is on the front lines pushing back against those mandates and laws.
Adam, I wanted to just say something about Kim. She said that she went down, as busy as she is. You just heard that. She goes to the precinct meetings. She makes a point to know her local area, know the situation with crime, know what's going on. People pull double duty while she's out of the store. And it really, I say this at Rotary clubs all the time, and this is the value of NFIB. And I think why Amy and Kim and so many of your members is you are either on the menu or at the table in every state and in Washington. And I think that's why Amy and Kim are members. It's why I've been at NFIB for 20 years. It's why I love working here. We've got to push back. We've got to make them understand that what they're doing has the impacts that Kim and Amy have so eloquently said here.
There's Small Business Saturday, and there's Small Business Week, and other kind of local recognitions for small businesses. And those are definitely important, but small businesses by and large are open year round. So what needs to be done to raise consumer awareness of small businesses around the companies and realize the importance of consumer choices when it comes to shopping in their communities the rest of the year, when everybody's not necessarily focused on celebrating small businesses?
When we have a new member join, and we get the new member lists and we call them during session, like right now, I don't call as many, but out of session, I'll call them. And one of the things that I'll say is, if you have time, please come to our Day on the Hill, our Small Business Day, and tell them your story and get to know your lawmakers. Do you know your lawmakers? Well, I think so. Well, after this call, I will email you the list of your congressman and your state senator and your state representative. And when you have time, call them and invite them to your business. And when they come to your business and they see what Kim and Amy are doing on a day-to-day basis, not only will they have an impact when they call later on an issue and they send an email or make a call on an issue, they've already established that relationship. And so from an NFIB standpoint, our grassroots team, we're so good at that. And each new member I talk to, I underscore how important that is, Adam.
And if I can add, thank you, Jim, because I did go to the meeting in Albany for the Small Business Day. And because of my needing the support of government, or should I say, I needed our legislators to see some of the things that we were going through. So surviving COVID, I was under scaffolding. We had many challenges in our neighborhood. And I found out who every single person was, from state assembly, from state senators, my city council, everyone. And I reached out to them, and I had each of them come to my store at certain times, and at least so that they can hear and understand some of the challenges that we have. And when I was there recently in Albany, this is speaking to the mandate situation and they're starting to think about mandating certain things that stores have to do for security. And they'd like us to put in security guards and panic buttons and gates. And yes, I would love all of those things, but I cannot afford that. Yet I need my government and my public administration to get crime and safety under control. Now, I'm talking about my own state, but the point is, yes, I wish every single small business would join the NFIB and get to know who they need to talk to. So some of these legislators would know what really happens in a small business and maybe get to know some of your small businesses. I'd love customers to think about, well, let me go to some small businesses, because then most likely they're going to have the best experience above and beyond anywhere else, because we care so much. Most small business owners have given their heart and soul and most of their money to start and maintain the business. And I'm speaking for myself, but I know there are plenty more business owners. We care so much that I think people don't realize how much we do, but it will make a difference in their own shopping, because I care about them and hopefully they'll care about us too.
The premise of the NFIB, but on a more local level, because I think that it is so important to be a part of the NFIB, because I don't necessarily have the time to stay on top of all of the topics that are completely out of my control. And so that's why that common voice is so important. But then on a local level, it's so important to have relationships with other local businesses, because that word of mouth with each other, that relationship with each other, that support with each other is ultimately what gets you through that day to day. And so then when I notice that another small business is having challenges, then I can lean on local experts that really can feel it as much as I'm feeling it right now, and kind of lean on the support of each other. So I think taking that NFIB level, and I guess not only telling other local businesses about the political impact that we have as a whole, but also taking that business model and bringing it to a local level of support, I think is incredibly important and necessary if we're going to continue to survive and thrive, honestly.
I think that's a great place to leave it. I know that you all have to get back to work, so we'll let you go. But Amy and Kim, Jim, thanks for joining us today on the Small Business Rundown.
The NFIB is amazing, and I'm grateful. We are grateful for you.
You'll have a good one.
Thank you.
Our next episode premieres May 16th and is about the importance of being a small business voter in every election, not just in presidential years. We'll be answering questions from our listeners regarding these topics, so if there's anything you'd like us to answer specifically, go ahead and send us an email at podcast@nfib.org. And now I want to thank you, the listeners, for joining us on today's Small Business Rundown. We'll be back every 2 weeks bringing you news and analysis from Washington, D.C. and state capitals so that you, whether you're a small business owner or a supporter of one, can continue to blaze a trail.
The Small Business Rundown is brought to you by NFIB, the voice of small business. You can find us at nfib.com and on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.